Chevre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong and happy, begashmis und beruchnis. Right now, as we speak, Klal Yisrael, Am Yisrael, finds itself in an Eish Tzara. Very, very dangerous times. A terrible, terrible tragedy happened. Simchas Torah, Tovshin Pei Daled. There was an attack from Hamas on Eretz Yisrael where they murdered 1,300 people. Hashem Yirachem, Hashem Yishmor. So the first thing we have to say, and this is not the purpose of today's shir, but nevertheless it has to be said immediately, that Imoy Anoichi B'tzara, every single year has to feel the pain. The pain. Just as Hashem says, Imoy Anoichi B'tzara. We've spoken about this many times in the beginning of Shmois. The first divine revelation that Moshe Rabbeinu has from Hashem is the story of the burning bush, the snare, and Hashem appears. The revelation was, the Gilui Elokus was in the thorns, and Rashi says over there, the message was, Imoy Anoichi B'tzara. And before that, and I think I've spoken about this many times, it says, Vayigdal Moshe, Moshe grew up, Vayar b'siv loisam, and he saw the pain of the Yidden. And Rashi says, Nosan eino v'liboy. You have to pay attention. This is empathy. And there's so much to discuss over here. One interpretation that commentators say is that Vayigdal Moshe, what was the true sign of Moshe's greatness? That Vayar b'siv loisam, that he saw the pain of his brothers. Even though he was born and brought up in the house of Parai, a prince of Egypt, so to speak. Nevertheless, he went out of his own reality, of his own experience, to feel the pain. Vayar b'siv loisam. And this means empathy. And this means Vayigdal. Only a mature person, only an adult, and only a truly great person could feel empathy. And empathy doesn't come from itself. Nosan eino v'liboy. You have to pay attention and think to yourself, am I feeling the pain or not? And we've spoken about this many times also. I heard in the name of the Baditsheva, whose Yortzeit Yemai Lula was just the other day, this week. And I heard said in his name, you could be for God or against God, but not without Him. You could be for Hashem or against Hashem, Chas v'Shalom, but never without Him. Wherever you are, whatever your state is, Hashem is right there. We have to realize that Hashem is with us. And that makes all the difference. Of course, we have questions. Please, Hashem, we can't understand it. And as the Rebbe quoted many times from big tzaddikim, how could this happen? How could this happen? We don't have an answer. All we know is, V'yafal pi sheyismameh ya'im kol zeh. Achak Eloi, Ani Mamin. Despite the pain, despite the anguish, we're still with Hashem. Hashem is with us. And amidst Hashem, we'll see even greater miracles. Didan Notzach. And the glory of Hashem will be revealed like never before. And when Mashiach will come, we'll finally understand why this had to happen. But amazing. In the first Rashi of Chumash, and as we've spoken many times, that, one second, let's start with the prayer, which this prayer is what we're going to be speaking about today, that Rashi brings down straight away, this verse of Tilim, the first Rashi. And that's Kapitel Kuf Yud Aleph, Pasuk Vov, and this is a kapitel which speaks about giving Oida Hashem, giving thanks to Hashem. And the pasuk says, Koyach Maiso v'Gileamoi, the power of his deeds he told to his people, Lo Seislem Nachlas Goyim, to give to them the portion of nations, which means Hashem gave us Eretz Yisrael. Rashi brings it down over here on Tilim Kuf Yud Aleph, Pasuk Vov, and Rashi brings it out in the first Rashi of Bereishis. Now listen to this. What I'm going to say now is based on Likutei Sichas Chelik Yud, the first Sicha on Bereishis, and also Likutei Sichas Chelik Hey, the first Sicha of Bereishis. I'm just going to say some points from those Sichas, so see there for the thing at length. And that is on the Pasuk Bereishis, Bara Likim Meis HaShamayim Veis HaAretz, one of the most famous verses in all of the Torah, the first verse. In the beginning, Hashem created the heavens and the earth. Rashi says, Omer Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Lo yitzorach la'aschlas ha'Torah, ela me'achodesh hazeh lechem. The Torah should have started from achodesh hazeh lechem. Shehi mitzvah rishona, which is the first mitzvah. U'ma tam posach bevereishis. And why did the Torah start with Bereishis? Mishum koyach ma'isa v'gid le'amoi. The power of his acts, he told to his people, Losses lem nachlas goyim, in order to give them the estate of nations. Shim yemru Misoelim li Yisrael. If the nations will come to Israel, to the Yidden and say, Listen matem, you are bandits, shekvashtem, arzi shiva goyim, you conquered the lands of the 7 nations who were inhabiting the land of Canaan. Hey, memrim lehem, so the Yidden are going to tell to the goyim, Kol haaretz shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the whole earth belongs to Hashem. He bara, he created it. Onesana lashe yosher be'einov, and he gave it to the one who is proper in his eyes. B'rtzoynoi nosana lohem, by his wish he gave it to the Yidden. U'b'rtzoynoi notla mehem, by his wish he gave it to the goyim. Originally. U'b'rtzoynoi nitla mehem, by his wish he took it from them. Onesana lono, and gave it to us. So how amazing is it that just last Shabbos there was this terrible, terrible massacre, and this is the issue. This is the point of contention. Precisely this that's discussed in the first Rashi of the entire Torah. The issue of Eretz Yisrael. Are the Jews the occupiers, or is it rightfully ours? You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. And this again shows you how truly awesome the Torah is. That the most contested land in the globe on earth is this small piece of land of Eretz Yisrael. We have Australia with the Aboriginals, we have America with the Indians, and we have so many other countries and histories where there was a land and it was conquered and people understood, you know, there's the universal laws that when there's a war and one side wins, and especially if there's countless wars, even though there was discussions of peace, so the side that loses, lost. I'm not getting into the legalities right now. I just want to bring out the facts. But when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, we still have the fight. And it's still going as strong as ever. As we speak right now. This is what the issue is. And here came along Toras Emes, the holiest book. And a book that is a divine revelation. And by the Jewish nation, there's nothing greater than the Torah. And what is the first pasuk all about? According to Rashi, this very issue. That in the year 2023, blood is being shed. What the Torah told us about this 3,300 and something years ago. So I'm not going to really talk about it so much in the physical sense, because it's not my position. I'm a teacher of Hasidic philosophy, Chassidus, to students, so we're going to speak of this concept more in our own service of Hashem. And that is, the question is on this Rashi, first of all, what does it mean? The Torah should have started with HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem. Why should the Torah start with HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem? Because it's the first mitzvah. But maybe first we have to know that there's a God. Number one. And God is the creator. Question number one. Question number two, because because in case a guy is going to come along and say, listen at them, so therefore we make a change in the Torah, it's actually astounding. Rashi is saying the truth is the Torah should have started like this and like this. But because somebody's going to come along, Mr. Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to come along and say, what's going on over here? So therefore the Torah starts. Why? I mean, it's pretty strange that we should change the Torah. If the Torah is meant to start one way, we start the other way. And finally, the question was not why is it in the Torah? Okay, we understand we have to have a response, just like the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Dam Asher Toshav. We're called the wise nation, so we should have all the answers. And Torah is wise, and therefore equips the Jew with whatever responses he needs in life. Fine. But what was the question? The question was, why Matam Posach Bereishis? Why is this the beginning of the entire Torah, this point of Bereishis bara Elikim, Eisa Shemayim V'Saras? And actually, without Rashi, we would just say, because the first thing we have to know is that we have God who created the world. Just like the Rambam similarly starts a sefer, Yisoida Yisoides Vamuda Chochmas, Leida Sheyesham Motzei Rishon. The Rambam starts off his whole Mishnah Torah by saying the first thing you have to know, the principle of all principles, the foundations of all foundations, is to know that there's a creator who creates and created the world, etc. So over here we have to say that this statement, this Rashi, obviously is telling us about our mission. And it's not only about answering to a Tom, Dick, and Harry, it's about answering a Yid. Torah is Torah Oir, Torah sheds light, Torah is our guiding light, Torah is our manual for life, and therefore this message that the Torah starts Bereishis bara Elikim Eisa Shemayim V'Saretz and tells us about Eretz Yisrael is all about what it means as a Jew and what it means concerning the mission of the Jew. So the point is like this. First, we'll say that there's a similar question. I don't want to mix questions, but there's another question we've spoken about many times that's also brought down in Chassidus concerning the 10 Commandments that starts off with Anochi Hashem Elikecha Asher Yitzisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. And over there the question is, why does it say Anochi Hashem Elikecha Asher Yitzisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim? It should have said Anochi Hashem Elikecha Asher Bereishis Shemayim V'Aretz. It's so amazing how wherever you go, Yiddishkeit has questions from every angle. So over there, the question is, why don't we say, when God introduced himself, Hashem introduced himself, he should have said, hello, I am the creator, which is pretty awesome. Because hu levadei b'koichei v'yicholti l'havis yishmayim. So why does he say, Anochi Hashem Elikecha Asher Yitzisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim? Which is a very well-known question. And the answer over there is because Anochi Hashem Elikecha is the story of the Jewish nation as a nation and personal experience of the Jewish nation. That yesterday we were slaves and today we're free. 50 days later is Matan Torah. And Chassidus explains the answer to the question over there is because that's the 10 Commandments and that's exclusively the story of how Hashem transcends nature completely. Anochi goes on Atzmos, the essence of Hashem. Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name which represents his infinity, his infinite light. Then comes Elikecha, as Hashem lowers himself and contracts himself into Elikecha. Now let's get back to our pasuk. The question of Lo Yitzorach L'Haschal Satayre Ela Me'achodesh Ad Elechem is because obviously, if we look at the Torah is not a history book. It's not just telling us tales or the history of the world. The Torah, you could say, is something which represents the ultimate expression of divinity that was given to us and the covenant between Hashem and the Jewish nation. So therefore, it should start with mitzvahs, which represents the uniqueness of the Jewish nation, which is higher than Elikim. Bereishis bara Elikim refers to how God lowered himself to create a world. So we already see the contrast over here. Like there's Asara Maimores, the 10 utterances which Hashem used to create the world, and Bereishis is one of the 10 Maimores. And then we have the Aseret Adibris, which is a greater level of divine revelation. But this is exactly the point. So take a pause for a second. Now let's start at the beginning. We have Hashem in his essence. Hashem in his essence is totally beyond the world, and nothing that's happening in this world in a certain sense reflects Hashem's true infinity. We don't see His true infinity. We don't see Hashem in all His glory without any shield or without any garment. And therefore, when Hashem created the world, we say He lowered Himself. So just like we say concerning Hashem that there's two levels, there's a level the way Hashem is in relation to Himself, and there's a level the way Hashem lowers Himself to create the world. So too, when we speak of our relationship with Hashem and the mission of the Jew, there's the Avodah, which is straight up divine revelation. What is that? Torah and mitzvahs. When we do a mitzvah and we say, Baruch ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivonu. So we're saying, Baruch ata, we're talking about the essence of Hashem. Baruch ata Hashem, Yudke Vavke. So that's one level, that's called Kedusha. That's straight up a Jew connecting to Hashem in the most intimate way. But then we have something which is called the Avodah of Reshus. Kol Maasecha Yiyu L'Shem Shemayim. In all your actions should be for the sake of heaven. And B'chol Derechecha Da'eyu. In all your ways you should know Him. Now what is this referring to? This is referring to Yankel the painter, Shmerel the tailor, or Reuven the lawyer, Shimon the doctor. Hashem wants us to take Reshus, what's called the mundane, and then transform that and channel that unto Hashem. In other words, in this mission of a Jew, in this mission that Hashem wanted us to take this physical world and transform it and make it a dwelling place for Hashem, there's two parts. There's one part where a Jew is learning Torah, whatever it is. He's going to shul 3 times a day, davening with a minyan, mitzvahs, and Torah, tefillah, tzedakah. Those are mitzvahs. Then there's the time where he's involved in the physical life. He could be doing exercise, eating, sleeping. And Hashem wants you to channel all of those things, Yiddish Gashmis is Ruchnius, to channel it all in the right direction and bring out godliness in the physical. And that means Rishus. So now, this is the whole point over here. And this is what Rashi is teaching us. Straight away, we're talking to a Yid. And somebody might think, the non-Jew, or the non-Jew in you, could say, let's leave God to the realm of the spiritual. And let me have my own space, which is devoid of Hashem. And this is what's brought down another place in Chassidus, the difference between Esav and Yaakov. Esav argues with Yaakov and says, you're going for Elam Haba. You're going for spirituality. But we're getting the physical. And leave Hashem out of the physical. If you want to meet Hashem, you want to have a relation with Hashem, become all the more spiritual, but let the physical, leave the physical alone. That's what the Goy says. And what we know is that Hashem wanted us to take that itself, the mundane, Nachlas Goyim, and transform it and bring it into the realm of holiness. And that's really what it means, Dira b'tachteinim, to take the tachteinim and to transform it to Hashem. And this is what it means also when we say koyach ma'asav. You know, it really means the power of Hashem. And this is a discussion we've had many times about how the concept of atzmus, which is higher than physical and higher than spiritual, is something that only Yiddishkeit knows about. All other religions and definitions of spirituality cannot compute. How is it possible to say that when I make a bracha al achilas matzah or al netilas lulav, I'm becoming one with the essence of Hashem? It doesn't make sense. Why? Because they look at God as Hashem, Rama kol goyim avaya, al shemayim kvoidei. They say in order to get closer to Hashem, we have to become spiritual. Let's get spiritual. And we look at Hashem. He's not limited in the physical or the spiritual. So how do we get close to Hashem? As He defines. And if He decides we get more closer to Him by shaking a lulav and by sitting in a sukkah, that's how we become close to Him. And as we spoke many times about the whole mitzvah of sukkahs, is the idea of Teishu Kein Teduru. We're living Judaism. Everything about your Jewish life, your daily life, your so-called mundane life, becomes holy when you sit in a sukkah and do that in a sukkah. And that's the whole point. We're not separating the spiritual from the physical. We're bringing the spiritual into the physical. And that's what Hashem wants. And that's what it means over here. And this is what Rashi is telling us. Why did Hashem first give it to the Goyim? You could speak to Hashem and ask Him why. But in a way, that's the whole point. If we're talking about the spiritual idea over here, is the spiritual idea is we're taking it out of what's called mundane and we're transforming it into holy. And that's why Eretz Yisrael is something which is one-on-one with Am Yisrael. Am Echad, Torah Echad, Hashem Echad. It's all connected. Because the whole point is to reveal the Echad. I think it was the Alter Rebbe that said that, what does it mean? Goy Echad Ba'aretz. The Alter Rebbe said, not that Goy Echad Ba'aretz means there's one nation in the world, the Jewish nation, but who are we? What's our definition? What's the nature of a Yid? Goy, the nation of a Yid, is Echad, the one that brings out and reveals Hashem Echad Be'aretz, in the physical, in the mundane. Aretz, Goy Echad Be'aretz, the land, in artsius, in earthiness, in physicality, in corporeality, we bring out the oneness of Hashem. And that's the whole point. As we spoke many times, Havaya Hu Elikim, Adishem Hu Elikim. There's no two separate levels of Hashem, separating the Bli Gvul, Hashem's infinity, from His Gvul. We say no. Kishem shesh lekeir bebilti bal gvul, kach yesh lekeir begvul. It's all the same exact thing. There's a famous story of a chos, I don't know if I said it before, Binyamin Kletzke, and he worked in timber. And one of the stories that's said about him, which is not so famous, is that one time he was standing by the riverbank in the middle of his business affairs and looking at the timber, the lumber, and he was lost in thought. And somebody walked over to him and said, "What are you thinking about?" And he said, "Hashem Echad." And the guy was amazed. Wow, inmitten Kletzke trachte wegen Echad. In the middle of your business with the timber, you think about Echad. He said, that's not a pella, that's not a wonder. The wonder is, how is it that mitten von Echad tracht me wegen Kletzke? The wonder is, what's wrong, what's strange, is how in the middle of the business, how in the middle of Echad, when you're saying Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, you're thinking about the business. But thinking about Hashem Echad during the business, that's the natural way of a Yid. That's what a Yid is. Goy Echad be'oretz. He brings out Hashem's oneness in the Oretz. And this is the whole mission of a Jew. The whole mission of a Jew is to reveal how Teva, the nature, and the Mailam and Teva, and that which is above nature, are really one. And this is only something that the Jewish nation understands. And this Chassidic philosophy is all about. One Maimer, one Chassidic discourse after another is all about this concept. And everyone knows also the story from the Tzemach Tzedek, which the Rebbe spoke about at length in Shabbos Parshas Pinchas, Tinosei. Somebody told the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he wants to move to Eretz Yisrael. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him the famous words, Mach do Eretz Yisrael. Make here Eretz Yisrael. And this is right now our mission in this war that's going on right now. We have to Mach do Eretz Yisrael in your home, in your Dalar Amis, in your place of work as much as possible. We have to show our support, number one, for Eretz Yisrael, for our brothers and sisters, but also to show how a Yid is a living example of morality, of ethics, of good character traits, of someone who lives for a higher purpose and has meaning in his life and is dedicated to a greater cause. And that's what it means, Mach do Eretz Yisrael. whether you're in London, whether you're in Paris, whether you're in Melbourne, whether you're in New York, wherever you are, Mach da Eretz Yisrael, make there Eretz Yisrael, a place which is permeated with godliness, which represents higher values, higher virtues, and a higher way of life, where we serve others and we bring benefit to others. Another very, very famous story is a story that's printed in the back of the Tehillim, where the Rebbe Marash once heard his children, they were arguing about the difference of a Jew and a non-Jew. It's a very famous story. And the Rebbe Marash said, let's call over Ben Zion the Meshoris. He was somebody who worked in the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe's household. Anyways, and there was a discussion before that between the Rebbe Rashab, who was a child, who's going to be later the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Razah, what distinguishes a Jew from a non-Jew. And the Razah was first saying the Jews are the people that are more learned, and they have scholars, etc. But then the Rebbe Rashab said, but what about the simple Jews who are not learned? So the Rebbe Marash heard about that discussion, and he said, call over Ben Zion the Meshoris. So then the Rebbe Marash asked him, Ben Zion, hast du gegessen? Did you eat? Ben Zion said, yes. Hast du gut gegessen? Did you eat well? Ben Zion said, was is good? Zat, Baruch Hashem. He says, what does it mean to eat good? I'm full, Baruch Hashem. And then the Rebbe Marash asked him, was hast du gegessen? Why did you eat? So Ben Zion says, kedei zu leben, in order to live. He eats to live. And then he says, was lebst du? The Rebbe Marash asked him, kedei soll kennen sein a Yidin, tom was der Eibishter will. And then he gave a krechts. He says he eats. Why does he live? He lives in order to be a Jew and to do what Hashem wants. And he gave a sign, meaning to say that he's not satisfied with himself, that he's serving Hashem and utilizing his energy and his time 100% in the right way. So out of modesty and humility, he gives a sign. Then the Marash called a non-Jew, a Gentile, who worked also in the home of the Rebbe, and he was a Christian, but he was brought up between Yidden and he knew how to speak Yiddish. So when he came, the Rebbe Marash says, did you eat? And he says, yes. Did you eat well? And he says, yes. And why did you eat? He says, in order to live. And why do you live? Ich soll kennen, nehmen, trunk, bamfen und verbeißen. He lives in order to have a good shot of whiskey or vodka, a good drink of brandy, and to verbeiß. So there you go. The Rebbe Marash wanted to demonstrate to his children that a Yid eats to live and to serve Hashem, and the Goy is living to eat. And this is understandable. How is it that I should bring spirituality, divinity, godliness, and holiness into the eating? And that's what it means. Los Islam nachlas goyim. We take the physicality, and even though they cannot understand how we could transform it and turn it to holiness, that is actually the mission of the Yid, to be a light unto the nations, and to show how we take a land and even a desert and turn it into a beautiful garden that has fruits and fruits and fruits, and is productive, and becomes a role model to the world of creativity, ingenuity, and of living well. And to finalize, there's a Moedik Avot, a Maimer from the Friedrich Rebbe in Tofesh Tzadik Tes. In the beginning of the Maimer, I'll just read from you, because what's interesting over here is an interpretation of the Baal Shem Tov, where he brings down bara as gesund. There's a Jewish saying that everyone knows, Bereishis bara, the erste Sache is, am darf sein gesund. It's a well-known saying. But over here, he brings it down in Chassidus, and he says as follows: Bereishis, goes on Beis Reishis, the Torah and the Yidden are called Reishis. Bara, Loshen Brios, V'Loshen Gilui. Elikim b'gematria teva. Bara Elikim, Tzrichim lahavri es hateva. Ubameh mavriim es hateva. B'zeh shemegalem es primiuso v'tachliso shel hateva. ומיהם המעברים ומגלם es פנימיוס הטבע, אלו ישרול והתורה. Basically, what he says over here is, we have to, the Jew, the Yidden, have to make nature healthy. And what does it mean, healthy? Healthy means when we reveal its purpose and its meaning. How awesome is this pshat? Bereishis, a Yid and Torah, bara elikim, are going to make nature healthy. Which means that when we do what Hashem wants in the Torah, it's not that we're bringing godliness into the world as something which is superimposed and an additive. No, we're actually revealing the true nature, the true definition of reality, the true nature of matter, and the true nature of the world and creation. That's the meaning of the words Bereishis, a Yid and Torah, bara elikim, make nature healthy. We see right now in the world, there's a terrible, terrible darkness, and there's a terrible, terrible golus that we're in now, that what happened last Shabbos could have happened, but then becomes a question of morality and ethics, and the world is confused. There's no question about it. And it's getting worse day by day. But a Yid who has Torah shows us the clarity. He has to know that who defines reality. You want to know what is reality? Bara elikim, Bereishis. The Yid and the Torah are the ones who are going to reveal the true nature of things, to make the world a healthy place, to reveal the true definitions of the purpose and the meaning and of everything. The Bereishis should help. We have to remember again and again to stress Avas Yisrael and Achdus Yisrael. The Avas Yisrael and Achdus Yisrael will bring the greatest blessings and the greatest miracles. And in the schus of each and every single one of us improving on our Avas Yisrael, as the Rabbi said, Shabbos Bereishis, let us all make a resolution right now and here to improve in our Avas Yisrael. Shabbos Bereishis. This Shabbos is a very important Shabbos, the climax of the entire month. We're going to make resolutions to improve in Avos Yisrael, and in that merit, it should bring about great Yeshuas and salvation to the entire Jewish nation. It should be the Dan Notzach, and we should see the Gula Mitzvah Shlema take from Yad Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, your man in Melbourne.